What's up guys, it's the Meta Goblin here giving you a Unholy Death Knight PvP guide. As usual, my guides normally follow a very clear and cohesive structure. First of all, we're going to go into the damage, how to pressure, how to use your rotations properly. Then we'll talk about how to use vitality of your class, for CC, defensive cooldowns, all that kind of jazz. Then we'll touch on how to gear up the class properly. We are limited in this field, but nonetheless there are certain pieces of gear that you actually need to buy, and certain ways to enchant still. And lastly, we'll just finish off touching on arena comps, perfectly viable arena comps and a bit of terminology. Just quickly before we get into it, I'd just like to raise the awareness of a website that I'm networked in called Gamers League Online. Effectively, the website is basically a load of tutorials like this for every class, every aspect of a game, PvE, PvP, raiding, whatever. I think there's also Hearthstone guides, League of Legends guides. It's just a massive website with loads of gaming tutorials. You should definitely check it out. So, for damage, we need to learn the main rotation, which is like the mid-length rotation, the thing you kind of use in between your burst. Then we'll learn the burst rotation, which revolves around using Berethus Degrosa properly. And then we'll touch on how to use the pet effectively to maximise his damage. The thing is, you need to understand about DK is that we aren't a bursting DPS class. I mean, that isn't a thing anymore. DK is all about keeping high amount of damage up for a really long period of time and just keeping it there and slowly, imagine you're slowly choking someone to death, and that is what a DK does. Okay, so before I can start teaching you how to use the actual spells properly, I need to teach you how to use the resources properly, because for DK they are very unique and complicated compared to other classes. Now what we have runes and runic power. Now, each rune you consume generates 10 runic power. Some abilities consume 2 runes and therefore give you 20 runic power. Only one rune of one type can regenerate at once. The second rune, say if you use 2 blood runes, that second blood rune will not regenerate, it will stay on the cooldown and it won't move. However, you can regenerate 3 runes at once. So blood rune, frost rune, unholy rune, you can regenerate one of each at once, which means you only want to be using your rune consuming abilities like conversion or death coil when you have as a maximum amount of runes on cooldown as possible. Okay, this is primarily because of the effects of runic corruption. What it does is it basically halves the rune regeneration time, so they come back twice as fast. And you want that to occur when you have 3 runes regenerating, so instead of it just like regenerating 1 rune quickly, you want it regenerating 3 runes quickly for maximum rune uptime. Last thing you need to be aware about runes is that all the runes can effectively turn into blood runes, death runes, sorry, but mostly blood runes and frost runes are going to turn to death runes. Now, what a death rune does is death rune can be used with anything. Say if you got 4 death runes, you can spam 4 blood boils, you can spam 4 icy touches, you can spam 6 scare strikes, is what we want to be doing. Okay, so let's jump into the main rotation. The first thing is very obvious, you want to get your dots up. You can do that either by using Outbreak or Plague Strike. The other abilities, they won't put both the dots up, but Plague Strike, Outbreak, just remember they put both your dots up. Then, following that, you immediately want to follow up with 2 Festering Strikes. What this does is it gets a massive amount of damage out and it turns all your blood runes and your frost runes into death runes. Then you want to follow up with 2 Scourge Strikes. Basically, you're just dumping your runes, using them to get out your damage, get up your death runes. And once you've got your death runes, you want to dump all your death runes with Scourge Strike. Scourge Strike is it's not the hardest hitting ability, but 2 Scourge Strikes do more damage than 1 Festering Strike. So that's why we kind of spam as much Scourge Strikes as possible. The thing that's really good about it is that you can spam 6, so you have massive uptime on the ability. And that effectively is the main rotation. That is how you're going to do the maximum amount of damage. Say if you're raiding, that's what you would be doing, and that's what you're going to try and do as much as possible in PvP. But the thing is, there's this thing called players, and players move around. So we can't stay on the target permanently, which is why we need to incorporate the ability Chains of Ice. It's not a damaging ability, but it is a utility that falls into rotation because you need to properly learn how to use it. Most of the time I open with Chains of Ice, but really you want to be using it whenever, okay, I cannot get onto my target, I need to use Chains of Ice. Following a Chains of Ice, you always want to use a Festering Strike. This is because it increases the duration of Chains of Ice. Effectively in your rotation, you want to keep Chains of Ice on your target for as long as possible, and especially if you can get on your target. So with Chains of Ice you want there all the time, and you might find yourself using your Death Runes with Festering Strike just to keep Chains of Ice on the target. So you always want to be on your target, so make sure Chains of Ice is always on the target, but sometimes you might not need Chains of Ice on the target and therefore don't do it. Followed up by this, because you're using a Frost rune, you can't then use a Festering Strike because it consumes 2 runes. What you have to do is you have to use a Blood Boil. Now, DK is a lot different. You can't just spam Blood Boils now. Well, you can, but this time we kind of need to control the way we do it. First of all, in the opener, I'd recommend doing it. Get your dots going, get them spreading. I definitely recommend doing that, but I wouldn't do it again unless you have to, but preferably you want to do it when your dot on the current target has a really, really long duration. Now, with the effect of Plaguebringer, you can keep adding the duration to your dots with Death Coil. Now, once you keep doing that, what you're doing is you increase the dot duration, and then you can get it to like 45 seconds, and then if you spread it at 45 seconds, that's really nice, because then you won't have to use a Blood Boil for a while, because your dots will just be ticking away and rotting everybody down. Forgot to mention how to use your runic power properly. It was very easy. Whenever you have runic power, you use Death Coil. Like I said before, you want to use it when you have a maximum amount of runes on the cooldown, so you can regenerate the maximum amount of runes when runic corruption occurs. Okay, let's just go straight into the burst rotation. Now, the burst rotation revolves around using Breath of Sidrigosa most effectively. Well, the way to use it effectively is to make sure you have loads and loads of runic power, because it consumes your runic power very, 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 very quickly. Now, I'm gonna teach you how to perfectly open with. You can open with this burst rotation, but you can save it for a little bit later for the perfect time. But what you want to do is you want to open with your Chains of Ice, your Festering Strike and your Blood Boil and your 2 Skirt Strikes. So use all your runes, and then don't use your runic power with Death Coil. Immediately after doing that, you're going to pop Breath of Sidrigosa, probably all your cooldowns, and then you're going to pop Empower Rune Weapon. Following Empower Rune Weapon, you go straight into the Festering Strikes to extend the duration of Chains of Ice, so you can stay on the target, keep the target pinned down, so that Breath of Sidrigosa is doing its damage properly, because it's only like a certain range that you can use it in before it actually does its damage. And then following that, you just pray that you get runes back off cooldown before Breath of Sidrigosa falls off. And that's effectively how you keeps Breath of Sidrigosa going for the longest amount of time and maximizing its damage. Now let's start talking about the pet. Now, whenever you use a Death Coil, the damage of the pet is increased by, I think it's like 20% each time to a maximum of 100%. And when he gets 5 stacks of this, it's called Shadow Infusion, you can pop him into a bigger form and a more powerful form called Dark Transformation. And once he is in that form, he's doing like as much damage as you, basically. So you want that buff on him for the maximum time as possible. Now, there's a trick to do. I'm going to show you how to do it properly soon. What you effectively do is when the buff on the pet is about 10 seconds, it lasts a maximum of 30 seconds. When it's about 10 seconds, what you're going to do is you're going to start storing your runic power and make sure you don't fully deplete it, so that when the buff falls off, you can spam Death Coils again, hopefully get some sudden doom procs, and so you can probably get like 4 stacks of full runic power. Just spam that in, and then you can pop him back into transformation very, very, very quickly. Sorry about the mic there. The thing that's even better about Dark Transformation now is that with the 4 set bonus, he actually gives you an extra 20% shadow damage, which is just as much as Recklessness or Avatar. It's insane. It's like as much as Pillar of Frost, and you can have that going all the time if you use this trick properly. Last thing to note is, like, just before you pop Dark Transformation, you want to make sure you have a maximum amount of Scourge Strikes possible. So basically you want full Death Runes and full Unholy Runes, because it only increases shadow damage, and Scourge Strike does shadow damage, Death Coil does shadow damage. I don't think any of your other abilities do. I think Plague Strike does, but obviously you don't want to be doing that. And Festering Strike, just reading it now, yeah, it's just physical damage. So Scourge Strike does shadow damage. Make sure you have a maximum. You can do loads and loads of Scourge Strikes just before you pop Dark Transformation. So let's give you some live action examples now. I'm going to quickly go through how to do the burst rotation. You don't necessarily have to open with this, you can save it for a more optimal time, but Now and again in Arena you want to get as much momentum going in the early moments of the game as possible, otherwise you fall behind. Now, because it's obviously I'm talking through as I go, I'll probably make a few mistakes, so bear with me. Now, I'm going to immediately open with Outbreak and just go straight into it. So, Outbreak, going to pop my cooldowns. Chains of Ice, and then immediately into Festering Strikes, going to increase the duration. And I'm going to spread my disease with Blood Boil. Now, I'm going to pop Breath of Sajugoso, going to immediately pop Empowering Root Weapon. Generate as much runic power as I can. Only use Death Coil when you have Sudden Doom procs. Got Dark Transformation there, and that's pretty much it. I've effectively bursted really well there. Got lots of damage out, and Chains of Ice is still on. So I mean that's it. I mean keep going obviously, but how much damage did I do there? It's not going to tell me. But that's effectively how you do it. Now I'm just going to quickly go through the mid fight. Obviously, all you want to be doing is dumping all your Scare Strikes with your Death Runes. So as you can see, I've got loads of Scare Strikes now. I'm just going to dump it down with sorry, got loads of Death Runes now. I'm going to dump it down with the good old Scare Strike, and then as you can see, my runes are coming back a bit crap at the moment. Just keep using Festering Strike until you get the full Death Runes, just like now, and then just start dumping the Scare Strikes. As you know, it's like in Holy Presence you have massive uptime on your abilities. I mean, you're pretty much doing something every global cooldown, which is really what you want to be doing. So you got Death Runes going now. Got that Lone Blood Rune, which is annoying me, so I'm just going to consume that and get some dots rolling. Dots are got a pretty decent duration now, so it's probably good to do that. And obviously you want to adjust your rotation around Chains of Ice. You might want to be using more Festering Strikes just to keep the duration on the target, to keep them pinned down. You may also have to reapply Chains of Ice because it can be dispelled, which is not irritating. I mean, yeah, maximum you can have it on is 12 seconds, right? A 12-second slow is pretty hefty. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to show you is how to maximize the uptime on Dark Transformation. I'm going to pop it now and show you exactly what I do. So I'm just using my runes normally. When you just pop it, you want to be just adjusting your normal rotation like I've taught you, dumping all your Scare Strikes and stuff. And when a buff gets to about 10 seconds, I'd say, you just want to start storing. Actually, I'm going to start storing it now. I'm going to consume a Sudden Doom proc though. But if you get Sudden Doom proc below 10 seconds of a buff, you want to hold it. I mean, I've got it precisely on, so I'm going to have to use it. But I'm literally not using my runic power. I'm just using my runes. There you go. I've got Sudden Doom proc, and now that it's off, I'm going to spam all my Death Coils. So you hold back in your runic power. You stop spamming your Death Coils for just a bit, and there we go. There we go. Dark Transformation popped again, doing loads and loads of damage. I'm going to go through it just one more time. So when you just pop it, you just want to spam as much damage out as possible. Make the most of that buff. Going to spread my diseases there. Duration's getting pretty low, but I'm just going to spam as much out as I can. Get my runes back. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to start storing. Duration's at 10 seconds. It's about to fall off in 3 seconds. Use that more extra rune. And here we go. Start dumping it at the Death Coils. And the Scare Strikes. Get the runes going as quickly as possible. And come on, one more Festering Strike, and there we have it. And then pop cooldowns again, because I think the Gargoyle is affected by shadow damage as well. So yeah, you should definitely pop your Gargoyle when you pop into Dark Transformation, because it probably increases his damage as well. I mean, look at it. Gargoyle Strike. I mean, it's probably not going to tell me, but yeah. So I mean, I just learned that on the spot. Pop Dark Transformation before you pop Gargoyle. So pop Gargoyle when you've got that Dark Transformation shadow damage increase buff. Now, just very quickly to finish off, there's a slight possibility that Blood Tap could be a tiny bit more viable than Runic Corruption. Runic Corruption, basically, you have more runes. The thing that's nice about Blood Tap is it regenerates your rune as a death rune, so you could get an extra 2 Scare Strikes in there. But the thing is, I think Runic Corruption will still be better because your runes will be coming back up faster, but really it's your choice. I mean, you could spam 8 in a row, which is decent. Problem is, you probably won't have a chance because obviously PvP targets move around overshot. And also Death Siphon. Obviously, you can regenerate 2 Death Runes very quickly and use it to consume Death Siphon. So it might actually be better for that, simply for a defensive advantage. Okay, now let's start, getting onto that bit of advanced level, let's talk about the utility of the class. First of all, we're going to go into crowd control. The only ability that you want to be using for crowd control, I mean in the tier of level 58, you do not want to be using Death's Advance or Chill Blades. Over time, you want to go for Asphyxiate. It gives you a massive crowd control uptime, reduces a lot of healing. You know, because that's essentially what crowd control does. It completely blocks healing. What you want to do is you want to use your crowd control on the healer while pressuring the DPS. Now, Asphyxiate, it's 30-second cooldown, 5-second stun. You want to be using it whenever you have it available. The thing you need to learn about crowd control is you want to chain crowd control. So you want to use your stun, and then your arena pattern. You want to say, for instance, Hunter, right? Hunter trap, 7 seconds, 5-second stun. Silence. You want to chain it all up with your healer as well, doing a crowd control, and you want to wait until your crowd control is completely finished. It's this thing that people will penalise you for, is overlapping your crowd control. You know, you see your trap there, it's only been on for 2 seconds, and then you stun. Don't do that. Wait for the trap to, you know, use its full duration, and then you stun, because you want to have the maximum. You want the healer or whoever you're crowd controlling out of the game for the maximum time possible. So that's Asphyxiate. Okay, next crowd control is Mind Freeze. Basically, it's essentially a 4-second silence. You want to be using this on. You can use this on a healer, even though you're not on him. You just need to move over and kind of lock him. But what it does, whenever a healer is casting in the middle of that cast, if you use it, you silence them in that spell tree for 4 seconds. Now, what you've got to be careful of is what healers do, and other DPS, is they try to fake cast. So they cast it a bit, and then they cancel it themselves. To trick you into using Mind Freeze, putting it off cooldown so that then they can follow up with free casting. You want to be careful of that. You want to wait until the cast is as late as possible before you actually lock it. You want to be careful of that. And also, some healers, for instance, a Resto Shaman will cast Lava Burst. Obviously, if you lock him in 5 spells, you can still heal. So don't do that. Be wary of that kind of thing. Now, the next crowd control ability is the most overpowered ability in the game. Okay, no shit. Problem is, it is the hardest ability to use in the game, and that is Dark Simulacrum. Essentially, what you do is, as soon as you see a healer or DPS casting, for instance, a Warlock casting Fear, as soon as you see the cast bar up, you pop Dark Simulacrum, and then you steal the Fear. Okay, that's the only way you want to be using Dark Simulacrum, is to steal crowd control. DK lack crowd control, but with Dark Simulacrum we have too much crowd control. So this is what separates a really good DK from an average DK, is really good spell steals. That you need to master Dark Simulacrum, how to use it properly, and you'll be pushing some seriously fucking high rating, because this is it is just an amazing ability. So you want to be making it, I'll talk about macros later, but you want to be making Arena 1, 2, 3 macro. You want to only be using Dark Simulacrum for crowd control. Now what we also have, it's not really crowd control, but it's a slow, so we're going to count it as a crowd control, it's Chain Device. Now, it ruins your rotation a bit, but you have to use it sometimes. You know, puts them in a slow for a decent amount of time. It is decent slow, to catch up on ranged. If you can't catch up on range, then you have to use it. It's just how it is. But you also want to be spamming this, because you can spam 4 of these in a row. You want to be spamming them on melee DPS. For instance, like peeling your hero or peeling your arena partner. So it's a really, really good peel. Make sure you learn how to use it properly. Now we also have Death Grip. Obviously that is a gap opener. And actually it's actually a damage buff now these days. As soon as you use Death Grip with the set bonus, the next ability becomes 25%. It gets more 25% more damage. You want to use that, at the optimum time when you have these strength boxes, strength cooldowns, and you've got a killing machine proc with Obliterate. But you can also use this on the focus target to interrupt casts. I mean, it's not massive, but it can still be a little bit helpful. That is essentially it for crowd control. You might be thinking, what about Remorse Winter? Remorse Winter is fucking garbage. Don't use it. Okay, let's go into defensive cooldowns and healing. So first of all, we've got Anti-Magic Shell, which you want to be using this as late as possible, because it is your strongest defensive cooldown. It blocks pretty much all magic damage. Nobody's going to damage you through Anti-Magic Shell if they've got a brain. But use it when you're like 10% health, 10-20% health. You want to use it as late as possible, because it's kind of an unforgiving cooldown, and it is your strongest defensive cooldown. It also starts generating runic power whenever you absorb damage, which is also helpful. So you can use that in sync with basically getting more damage out. We've also got not Empowering Weapon, Icebound Fortitude. It's really good to pop you out slows. We'll talk about that kind of stuff later. But whenever you're stunned, you can use it to pop out. But really, you want to be using this when you're taking a lot of damage, because it reduces your damage taken by 20%, which is actually pretty decent. Important thing to notice is actually Blood Presence. This also is something you want to be using when you're taking a lot of damage. You want to switch into Blood Presence. You want to open in Blood Presence just to scare people away as well, but Blood Presence you want to be using definitely for taking a lot of damage. Okay, let's talk about healing. The most healing you're going to get from any ability is definitely Death Strike. It is a decent fucking heal, and it does more healing the more kind of damage you are doing at the same time. So you want to be, if you're in a desperate situation, you want to pop your strength cooldowns simply to heal with Death Strike. The thing that's great about this, you can use free Death Strike, so it's like heal 15k, 15k, 15k. It's a decent heal, and it probably won't be 15k, it'll be a lot more, it'll be like 20 to 30k. The other healing ability is Lichborn. What it does is increases your leech by 10%. What leech does is whenever you de-damage, percentage of that damage becomes healing. Now, obviously you want to be using this in sync with your strength cooldowns and doing as much damage as possible whenever you have Lichborn available to get the most healing possible. The most optimal healing choice for Unholy spec is definitely going to be Death Siphon, simply because you need Death Runes to do it. And in Unholy spec you can have like about 4, you can even have 6 going. So I definitely recommend going for Death Siphon. Best way to do it is just to spam it and consume all your Death Runes as quick as possible. So let's talk about how to break yourself out of CC. That is something that DK is probably the strongest than any other class in the game, is by breaking yourself out of CC. The biggest one is Desecrated Ground. What it does is it pops you out of any crowd control apart from silence, I think. You can also pop you out of roots now these days, which is really helpful. Basically, you crowd control, use Desecrated Ground, it acts like a trinket basically. But as long as you stay within the radius, you also prevented from any further crowd control, so you want to stay in it as long as possible. For instance, if you see more crowd control incoming, you want to stay in it. You want to stay there in your Desecrated Ground because you're there, you're safe, you're moist. Block any other crowd control. Lichborn, talked about it before, it also pops you out of sleep, spheres and charms, so that could be mind control, it could be fear, sleep, I don't know, what sleep, I don't know, sleep. I don't think DK could be sleeped in any way. I think only beasts can be sleeped, so you don't be worrying about that. What else? Obviously Icebound Fortitude can pop you out of stuns, and then obviously we have Trinket, which pops you out of anything. So let's just touch on the remaining utility left in the game. That's Scorpion's Grasp. So what you want to be opting for this in rated battlegrounds. What you do is you basically, I'll talk about it a bit later, you massacre it into mass crowd control, for instance Solar Beam, Ring of Frost, Howling Fear. I don't think that exists in the game anymore. But you basically you use it, and every player around you is basically gripped towards you. I have a macro for it. You can actually do it to other people as well. But it's definitely something you want to be going for in rated battlegrounds. Okay, so let's talk about how to gear. Now, what the stat priority is for Unholy is Mastery and Multi-Strike. Then Mastery, Multi-Strike, then it would be whatever's left. I mean, then it would be Versatility, and then Haste and Crit. Now, when it comes to choosing gear pieces, you want to choose the pieces with Mastery predominantly, because Mastery buffs pretty much all your damage. Straightforward, it's going to give you more damage. And you know, Mastery, you want to aim for pieces of gear with Mastery and Multi-Strike. Sometimes you find Mastery with something else, I mean, that's fine, but you're just going to have to live with that. Prioritize Mastery and Multi-Strike as your stats for gear when you're choosing your gear, but make sure that you actually have the set. You only need 4 pieces of a set, you don't need 5, so just make sure the pieces that you choose give the most amount of stats that you need, i.e. Mastery and Multi-Strike. For your enchanting, you know, on your rings and your neck and your cloak, people are enchanting Mastery, so I'll just go for Mastery. Just do it. I mean, you know, it's straightforward, increases your damage, and that's what you want. And that's pretty much it for gearing. I mean, there's no reforging, no gemming anymore, which is a bit of a letdown. But oh well. Now let's talk about Arena. The most played comps at the moment is definitely going to be DK and Ret Paladin. It's a very strong melee cleave. Melee are always normally strong at early expansion, so Ret, DK healer. I would recommend playing with a Boomkin. I recommend playing with a Warlock. Warlock are nice to play with. Hunter are nice to play with. Feral is nice to play with. And that's pretty much it. Gonna be honest, I can't think of anything more. Elemental's a bit bad at the moment. What other classes are there? Warrior for TSG, I mean, you can try it, but to me it's always been a really unreliable comp. Because you have to train a healer the whole game, and it's just like, it's just a bit of a dodgy comp, but you can try it. I mean, you can make it work. That is known to work also with Windwalker Monk, so you can try that. I think most comps are working with Brewmaster Monk nowadays because of how retarded Brewmaster Monk is. So you can probably try out that comp. In twos, I definitely recommend. No, actually, forget twos. Unholy is really bad in twos. Going to be honest. Frost is the only thing that excels in twos. I just can't think what other classes there are. I tried Shadow Priest, it was really bad. Maybe if you play for better Shadow Priest, it might be better. You know, best thing to do is just to try it out, but predominantly you want to be trying. I know that Ret is a very strong comp to play, and I know that Boomkin is a strong comp to play with. Warlock, all the rest of them, I definitely recommend Ret and Boomkin, though they're probably the strongest at the moment. That's pretty much it for the game, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Uploads in the following weeks might be a little bit slow because I've got quite a lot of uni work to do, and I'm also working on pretty big videos rather than the small little uploads I've been doing. So, you know, don't rage quit and like kind of think, oh god, this guy's not uploading in 4 days or a week, I'm going to unsub and, you know, be a dick. Don't do that. Just like, the uploads are going to be a little bit slower because I've got bigger videos coming. So, I mean, that's the only reason why. So yeah, stay tuned. That's it for me, guys. The Meta Goblin here. Ciao.
My friend, I can't seem to stand. Nothing changes inside of me. I'm tiredly pushing the limit.